Miritam Yana Tashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yana Bhutere Swayam Rupakaramayam Darati Swapanadikam Vandeham Sri Gurus Diyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Siddhevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surito Pangor Mahamandir Matir Gati Matsava Shapadam Boja Radha Madana Mohanam Sriman Rasa Rasaram Bib Vamsi Vada Karsan Pinishan Upagana Gopanata Sri Saram Divyad Vrindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Radnagara Shima Shanishto Sri Sri Radha Shila Govinda Dev Prachadavihi Seva Manushmanami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Taya Cha Jigari Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Radhajam Mangalam Panidi Kaksho Mangalaya Tanohri Om Narayana Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodyatehe Om Mahadevi Chavidmahi Vishnu Panitadimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodyatehe Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Sade Sade Hadi Pare Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Dhanadire Tapta Kanchana Gonangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanusute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanama Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauramani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sunivadi Praskita Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, everybody. It's Transcendental Tuesday here in Spanish Fork, Utah, New Kusham Sarovar. And we're continuing our discussion from yesterday about the home field advantage. There's an example given in connection with Lord Shiva to show that even if you're weaker, but you're in a good, strong location, being in the proper location at the right place at the right time can compensate for any lack, any weakness otherwise. And the question was asked, can the ant touch the moon? It's almost a ridiculous question. Of course, the ant can't touch the moon. But there is a place where if the ant is situated in this place, the ant can touch the moon. And if you were here yesterday, you know the answer to this question. The moon is on the head of Lord Shiva. I bow to Lord Shiva, love and respect. I invoke him with this slogan because I'm open to connect in devotion because he's always in effect in deep meditation with a snake around his neck. He's the husband of Parvati Mahashakti. He rides a white bull, the vehicle Nandi. He's the father of Ganapati, Mr. Mahadev. The Ganges flows down from the crown of his head. A crescent moon rests right next to his dreads. He's the god of the dead, covered in ash with a smile on his face, and his compassion is vast. I might as well finish it. But you caught that, the pertinent phrase, right? Crescent moon rests right next to his dreads. So if you're an ant in the dreads of Lord Shiva, then yes, you can touch the moon. To Shiva Shankar, the yoga master, also known as Nataraj, the cosmic dancer, is the lord of destruction, the god of disaster. If you don't invite him in, he's the party crasher. He's the old school mystic who's Krishna dualistic. He shifts my mind from a place that's materialistic to a space that's more holistic. He's the magnetic ascetic who makes my soul shine, awakens the snake at the base of the spine, third eye wide open, a yoga pose. He focuses the mind so the petals unfold in deep meditation with breath control. He worships Lord Krishna by chanting his names as the Ganges drains to the sea, as bhakti remains at Krishna's lotus feet. Om Namo Shivaya, the flames get higher as the corpse gets burned on the funeral pyre. The soul never dies, so it won't expire. When it's time to die, just let go of this attire. Exhale to release selfish desire. May my soul aspire to shine bright like Jiva Nataraj, whom I admire, dancing a demon and burning a ring of fire. Mahadev, you're said to be pure, auspicious, truth, conscious, bliss, creating, devastating, transformating. You save the whole world when you swallow the poison. You destroy bad habits, ignorance, and greed. You practice detachment, compassion, and peace. To the Lord of meditation who lives in the Himalayas, the king of all yogis, I offer these prayers. So if you're an ant on the head of Lord Shiva, in the dreads, on the head, in the dreads of Lord Shiva, because the moon, the crescent moon, is also nestled in amongst the dreads of Lord Shiva, you could touch the moon if you're on the head of Lord Shiva. This same point is illustrated again with reference to Lord Shiva. Once it's described in the Puranas that Lord Vishnu flew on Garuda to see Lord Shiva in Mount Kailash. And we all know Garuda is the enemy of snakes. He eats snakes. Snakes are terrified normally of Garuda. And Garuda is so powerful and so swift, and he falls like a thunderbolt from the heights. You don't even see him coming. Snakes have almost no defense against Lord Shiva. Before they even know he's coming, he's picked them up, got them 500 feet above the ground, and taken them somewhere where we can eat them. And yet, the snake who coils around the neck of Lord Shiva was very impertinently hissing at Garuda the whole time. Krishna and Shiva were conversing. The Garuda was like, the snake was saying, come on, what you got? What you got? What you got? Bring it on, bring it on. The snake had all this bravado, which normally no snake ever in the history of the world would have bravado. In the presence of Garuda, they would be terrified down to their very roots, their core. But this snake is like, I dare you. I dare you. So that's at least one instance where if you have a good position, if you have the home field advantage or the home field advantage, then that will compensate for any shortcomings. And of course, again, if you were with us yesterday, Dhritarashtra was very concerned learning that his impious sons were going to contend with the righteous, pious Pandavas at Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra, the field of war, place where the battle of Kurukshetra took place, was a place where pilgrims had gone for many centuries, performed sacrifices and austerities. So from the very first 4 words of the Bhagavad Gita, as we mentioned yesterday, there's a portent, there's a omen that the unrighteous Kauravas could never prevail, even though they have vast strength. They have 3 soldiers to every 2 of the Pandavas. They have Dronacharya and Bhisma, who in fact taught every younger warrior there all of their martial arts skills. And because of that, neither of them was surmountable. Neither one of them was conquerable through ordinary means by any of the other warriors. They had, I believe, 7 Maharajas on the Kaurava side, including Karna, Ashwatthama, Duryodhana, Bhisma, and Dronacharya, 1 or 2 others. And nevertheless, because the battle was taking place at Kurukshetra, which is also known as Dharmakshetra, the place of righteousness, and because Krishna, who is Tirthapada, he is the people who travel thousands of miles to go to places where Krishna's lotus feet touch the ground, and to take that ground, soil, and take a bath in it, abhishekam. Jivanchavo Bhagavatangariana Namarta Bidabeta Jashtu Sri Vishu Shasham Shashan Chayoshtabadaram. Devotees of Krishna believe that if you haven't gone to a holy place and taken the dust, which has been touched by the feet of Krishna, and poured it over your head and done abhishekam, if you haven't taken a bath, then you are no better than a dead body. You're just a dead body moving around for a few years, and life has no higher meaning or a higher purpose. Because of the presence of Krishna and because the battle was situated in Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, there's a indication from the first 4 words of the Bhagavad Gita that the Kauravas will not be successful. So in this incident, when the snake hissed at Garuda, Garuda gave us a takeaway. Okay, Rob, Garuda also is in the same business that you're in. He's in the business of giving takeaways. So in this incident, Garuda said in the Puranas, quote, if a weak person is in a position of strength, he cannot be attacked. This snake is hissing at me only because he's sitting in a favorable position. Garuda might have well said, like antagonists in bars have said since time immemorial, take it outside. The snake is saying to Garuda, come on, bring it on. I dare you. And Garuda is saying, well, you're pretty brave. Around the neck of Shiva, why don't we take it somewhere else? And then we'll see how brave you are. Similarly, it is described that Gajendra and the crocodile engage in this tug of war back and forth for 1,000 years. And in this story, the water is the material world. Gajendra is at a disadvantage. Water is not its natural environment. The crocodile is Maya. Maya is at home in the material world. And the crocodile is at home in the water. In the water, the crocodile has the advantage. The crocodile has the upper hand. The water, the material world, is Maya's hometown. It's not our hometown, but it is Maya's hometown. When we're Krishna Baliya se Jiva Vihira Ataivamai, Bhukta Bhoga Paritya Drishta Dashanam, we are effulgent, luminescent beings full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. We're like a pure drop of rain before it hits the earth. We're like a particle of fire. We're like a spark of fire. We possess light and heat, all the qualities that our Maker, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, possesses. We also possess in limited quantity. So in our natural environment, in the spiritual world, we are very powerful. There are no conditions on the living beings in the spiritual world. They have bodies which are made of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. They can go anywhere faster than the speed of mind. They can obtain anything from anywhere for the purpose of serving the Lord. That is called unconditional life. Anything you can think of, you can do in the spiritual world. The presupposition is that you're there first and foremost to serve the Supreme Personality of God. So everything is conducive to devotional service in the spiritual world. And devotees, those who are right in the middle of what they were created to be and created to do, they're totally relaxed, totally at home in the spiritual world, and they're omnipotent in many ways, just like the Lord is omnipotent. They're not conditioned by the limitations of this material world. This material world, because it's made of matter, the very air itself. You know, you may have analogies. The poets may write metaphors describing about the breeze within your sails or faster than the wind or being picked up by the wind. But the wind itself is a gross material element compared to spirit. So even if you're a bird flying at a high speed through the wind, you're pushing against matter. There's friction there. The material world, there's always pushback. Imagine if you were in an environment where there was nothing holding you back. There was not the density of matter, nor even of mind, to slow you down, to weigh you down. There's no drag on you whatsoever. Faster than the mind. As soon as that impulse comes within the heart of the spiritual self, one is there, one does that, one possesses this, one accomplishes that. There isn't any lapse between the conception and the completion. Just like Krishna, when he created the world, he said, let there be a material world. And by speaking that, his speaking was a fact. If I say, let there be a shed for the lamas, it could take weeks, months, years. Material, supplies, nails, tools, hiring people, pay them a salary, going to Builder Supply, going to Home Depot, back and forth, replacing this defective part, that defective part, the weather. We can't work today because of the weather. It's too cold or it's too wet. I may want to build a shed for the lamas. It might be 6 or 8 months before it actually happens, if even then. How many of our plans, how many of our thoughts do not come to completion? But in the spiritual world, no sooner is it conceived, and I don't say thought of, because even the mind is spiritualized in the material world. So we don't have the material mind, we have the spiritual self. So no sooner is something conceived of for the service, for the satisfaction of the Lord, then it's accomplished. And you might work for it, you might put in some time to make it happen. But it's not because you're being opposed. It's not because you're in an alien or foreign environment, which is pushing back against you. It's because you choose to spend your time serving the Lord in that way. You get ecstasy from, earmarking a block of time in order to create something for the Lord. It could be created instantaneously, but if not, you instead of just mustering up a 5-course meal, you might want to go into the spiritual gardens and pick the spiritual food. You might want to go into your spiritual kitchen and cook the spiritual food. You might want to then put the spiritual food out on the table and everyone gather around. And the whole point is not the food. It's not to nourish a material body. You don't have a material body. There's no problem about growing vegetables or cooking them or cutting them up or preparing them, offering them, laying them out. It's all relishable. It's all done out of a desire to serve and to love the Lord. None of it is forced. It's not that if you don't do it, you're going to starve to death. If you don't do it, you won't have any friends. So Gajendra thinks that the land is his home and the water is an alien environment. Fact of the matter is that nowhere in this material world is the situation comfortable. Nowhere in this material world do we have security. In spite of it says, Balasya Neham Saranam Pitana Nishringa, those who do not surrender to Lord Nishringa, who is an incarnation of Krishna, those who are unsurrendered to Krishna. Balasya Neha Saram Pitana Nartasya Chagaram Idambato Taptasya Tadvidivi Hanjana Tavad Bibu Tanu Budam Mitrana Pekshanam. Even you have parents who look after you, parents whose only desire is to protect you at all costs. They will throw down their lives in order to protect your life. Even though there are parents like that, still children die. We've seen that very recently in Gaza and Israel. In spite of the paternal instinct of the parent to protect their child, still children die. In spite of a huge boat or an airplane or a Titanic boat, still people drown. People drown. In spite of having enough money for the best medical treatments in the world, you can fly yourself to a special place and bring in physicians who are specialists in treating what it is that ailed you. But still, oftentimes, the patient dies. In spite of having loving, protective parents, in spite of having a big boat like the Titanic, in spite of having the best medical treatment and the best physicians, oftentimes people die. What we learn from that is sam shrita ye pada palav varam mahat punyam baba babo marari. This material world is not our home. There's danger at every single step. The saying is that when one is poisoned, when you're poisoned, you eat something that threatens to kill you, and it's poisoning your gut. It's creating toxins in your gut, which are multiplying exponentially and threaten to overwhelm your whole organism. The way to put down those toxins is to eat neem leaves. You take a whole basket of neem leaves and you eat them. Neems are extremely bitter, extremely bitter. And when you chew the leaves, the bitter, terrible taste comes out, but that bitterness goes into your gut and it kills the poison. It neutralizes the poison. Now, if you're not poisoned, if you're normal, you can't even take one bite of a neem leaf. It's just so bitter, so sharp. You can't do it. However, when you're poisoned, the peculiarity is that the neem leaf tastes sweet. So in that poison situation, you can, in fact, eat a whole basket or a whole bucket of neem leaves. Once you become cured, then you put one little mouthful of neem and you say, oh God, and you think, how could I have possibly eaten a whole bucket of neem leaves? The answer is the only way you could have done it was you were poisoned. Only in the poisoned state do the neem leaves taste sweet. So similarly, when we achieve liberation, when we actually go back home, we'll realize that this material world was never our home. It was, in fact, a place where we were constantly being poisoned by sense gratification. We were away from our home. We weren't getting the proper nourishment. We weren't catering to our real selves. There's nothing in this material world which is of benefit to the spiritual self. The only utilization of this material world is to use the things of this world in devotional service so that you can get back home, back to Godhead. Now, someone may accuse, oh, true, you and those Hare Krishna, you're just escapists. You're just escapists. You're not here and now. You're not present in this material world. Well, we are escapists. If you're not an escapist, you're not very intelligent. Imagine somebody who's watching TV and reading the newspaper in his home, and he smells smoke, the fire alarm goes off, the relatives are exiting, they're saying, come with us, save your life, it's fire. But you think, well, let me finish reading the newspaper, or let me finish my favorite show, and then I'll exit the house. Is that intelligent? As soon as there's any hint of fire, whether it be a smoke or listening to any crackling sound or getting a warning from a well-wisher family member, if you're intelligent, you're out of there, man. ASAP. You're just like hoofing it out of the house and as far away as you can. So be sure, we're escapists. It's the only intelligent posture in this material world. Just look at what's going on. If we were any doubt that this material world is an alien environment, it's not in our favor. It's out to get us. We've seen the Ukraine, unprovoked attack on the Ukraine by Russia, unprovoked attack on Israeli kibbutzim and families and little children. There's no rhyme to it. There's no reason for it. It's just viciousness. It's just hatred. It's the base, mean nature of this material world. There are three modes of material nature. There's goodness, there's passion, and there's ignorance. Now, as we go deeper and deeper into this season of Kali Yuga, this winter season, goodness becomes almost non-existent. You'll have to go far and wide to find even a single gesture of goodness. What to speak of a person who acts in goodness 24/7, that's almost impossible to find outside of genuine God-centered people. Most people are in passion. 99% of the population lives in the cities and uses fossil fuels and eats food that's imported from the country. Hardly anybody lives a simple rural agrarian existence. Even those who grow food run these big, huge industrial agri-farms. So everybody mode of passion is very prominent. And then because of the infrastructure, because of the transportation, because of the trucks and the trains and the planes and all the freight that goes here and there, it's almost inevitable that most of the population end up in the mode of ignorance. Who does an honest day's work for an honest wage nowadays? Everybody's in the IT industry. Everybody's in the service industry. Who actually goes out and does 6-8 hours of physical work for a proportionate wage? We're disconnected from anything that remotely resembles the mode of goodness. We're in the mode of passion, and the problem is kamesha, krodesha, rajaguna, samudma, mahasano, mahapavavidya. The mode of passion brings us ultimately, our offspring, our dependents, into the mode of ignorance. In the mode of ignorance, nothing constructive, nothing positive is ever accomplished. People in the mode of ignorance sit around, lazy, unoccupied. The idle brain is the devil's workshop, and they spend their time not productive, not constructively, but blaming others, blaming circumstances, feeling sorry for themselves, full of resentment, and plotting how to get even. They think that these people are the cause of my suffering, or this gender, or this ethnicity, or this government, or this political party. There's someone who's a leading contender to be president of the United States, and he calls anybody who doesn't agree with him vermin, and he promises to eliminate them. And this is the guy that we're going to democratically elect. Well, good luck. I think you're going to get whatever you deserve, folks. But when one is cured, one looks back and can't see how it was that one ate a whole bucket of neem leaves. But that's what we're doing. We're eating poison in this material world. Shravid Varashtakari Shamshitara Nayakana Jatu Nama Gadagaja. In the second canto of the Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami says that we in this material world will like the camel. And the lamas, I've noticed, are also like that as well. We have sagebrush, and sagebrush can be pretty prickly. There's some sharp edges. I wouldn't go so far as to say there are thorns in the sagebrush, but there are a lot of spiky little branches that are offsprings. The llamas will sit and they'll eat those spiky branches. If they could smile, they would be smiling. There's a look of contentment in their eyes, just in the same way that camels eat thorns. They search out bushes with sharp, spiky thorns. They eat them, and when they eat them, the sharp points of the thorns cut the soft tissue within the mouth, which creates blood. And they're chewing the thorns, and they're swallowing their own blood. And yet they think that the thorns are juicy. They think that by chewing the thorns, they're releasing some juice which is inside the thorns. They're not intelligent enough to realize that there's no juice in the thorns. They're drinking their own blood. We are also drinking our own blood. By day, we go out, we work, we spend our time at the office place, which includes a commute, half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours, coming and going every day. We go out at lunch, we get some fast food, overpriced fast food at a restaurant. We spend our time in an unhealthy, unnatural environment if we're working in an office. And we come home exhausted. We don't have the energy to pursue spiritual life, to read the Bhagavad Gita, do kirtan, just zombie out in front of the TV. And then as a reward for having worked throughout the day and provided the money to pay the mortgage and put groceries on the table and to educate the kids and to make the payments on the car, as a reward, we get some sex. So during the day, one's working hard, and during the night, he's having sex. And the sex itself is giving blood. It takes 16 drops of blood to make one drop of semen. So every time one passes semen, one is a blood donor. Imagine if you went to the plasma center and donated blood every day. Imagine what that would do to your health, your vitality, your vigor. You know, people donate blood, I don't know, once every 6 months or so. They don't recommend you do it more often than that. I donated blood one time and I couldn't get up. I got up, they took the IV out of my arm. I got up and the whole world started spinning around. The nurse looked at me. She was quite alarmed. She said, "You're white." Had me sit down for another 10 minutes, brought me an orange juice. That's just from giving blood once. People in the material world who are addicted to working hard in sex life are giving blood. They're blood donors every night. Every night they're giving blood. What's that going to do to your health, your mood, your temperament? How can you be upbeat, positive, excited about your future when you're opening your veins literally and spilling your blood on the ground every single night of the year? So Gajendra is thinking that he's in danger in the water, but if he could just get back to the land, he would be okay. Well, in the material world, that's a fallacy. Whether you're on the water or the land, you're in danger. It's not your home. It's a foreign environment. There's danger at every step. And if we take this as an analogy, if we take the water that Gajendra's in as representative of the material world and the crocodile as Maya, who's perfectly at home in the water of the material world, and if we take the land analogously as the spiritual world, then it's a very good example. It's a very, very good example. And we should dedicate our energy, our efforts, our desires towards getting out of this material world first and foremost. There isn't much of a point in making huge concessions to the material world, trying to improve your economic condition, live in a bigger house, drive a fancier, more expensive car. There's not much point in any of that because we're only here temporarily. Everything will be taken away, if not at the time of death, earlier. Ataham atma rupashtakva devinitam pashabam idam kritanti yaya duvam stivir. Duvam means accident. Accident. In the sixth canto of the Bhagavatam, Bali Maharaj says that people are lulled into complacency, just as Gajendra was lulled into complacency by his wives, his children, by his strength. People have a nice car, they live in a nice house, and yet if you were awake to the reality of your situation, you would be terrified, because going down the freeway at 65, 70 miles an hour, anything could happen. Anything could happen. As defensively as you may drive, you may be sane and sober. Most people are not, but you may be sane and sober. But don't forget, you're sharing the road with all kinds of people that are taking alcohol, that are oxycodone, tramadol. They're depressed, they're suicidal, they're not fulfilled, their lives don't have any meaning. And you're on the road with those kinds of people. Anything can happen. So Bali Maharaj says, the last thing we should feel is safe. The last thing we should feel is complacent, because at any moment, especially in the modern age with the high speeds that we travel, there could be an accident any moment, and all your bank balance, all your family, all your friends, and you're just yanked out unceremoniously without even a second's worth of notice. Saw this video, it popped up the other day. There was a pickup truck, one of those big hopped up pickup trucks that people are fond of driving around here in Texas, with the big wheels. And so there's a car, a minivan, that just pulls over, and neither one of us going above the speed limit. Pickup's probably doing 65, and this car pulls around at maybe 70 miles an hour. And when the car gets abreast of the pickup truck wheel comes off. The pickup truck wheel comes off. It slams, it goes sideways with tremendous force. It hits this minivan. Knocks the minivan, turning over in midair across the median into the path of a semi-trailer. The pickup goes off the road and hits a tree. Both cars, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I think you'll agree that our message is upbeat and positive. But let's get real. Let's have a reality check here. One time I was driving this black van. I bought it in Boston. Ronnie was the president. He helped me finance it. And then it went to Toronto, and then it went down to, where else did it go? We went to Los Angeles with it. Then finally it ended up in Utah. And I was on the freeway on-ramp with this black van, and I was only going about 30 miles an hour, and the wheel comes off. Fortunately, I wasn't on the freeway. I was just entering the freeway on the on-ramp. I'd been to Home Depot, and I was, merging with the traffic, and the wheel comes off. Just came off. It was a van that was, it was a few years old, probably had 100,000 miles on it, but it had been taken care of, lubrication, oil change, everything like that. The wheel comes off. I thought, my gosh, what if I'd been going 70 miles an hour? What if I'd been passing someone in the fast lane? Thank you, Krishna. Krishna saved me to chant another day. My number didn't come up that day, but it could very well have. Now, aside from all the dangers that present themselves to us in this material world, there's the fact that when you're in a foreign land, you can't speak the language, you don't know the currency, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't get any food or water, you don't get any nourishment, you don't get any real nourishment. When the camel eats the thorns are not nourishing him. He's being nourished by his own blood. And that's a vicious cycle, which is going to cause him to get weaker and weaker and eventually die. If you want nourishment, you have to go back home, back to God, because in this material world, you can get all kinds of accoutrements for the body. You can get manicures, you can get pedicures, You can have gourmet food in a fancy Michelin-rated 5-star restaurant. You can drive a Lamborghini, fly first class in airplanes like Qantas Airline, KLM, but you're not getting anything for the soul. The soul is crying out. The soul is desperate. In our little rap song, which I got from Jake Emlyn, it says, the question I propose from me to you is, do you have the eyes to see? The soul is unborn and never grows old. You can tell by the way we cry, trying to conform to a limited life. Death is so painful because we're not supposed to die. Soul is eternal. We know it inside. Like, why should I change my body again? That's the meaning of human sense. If I'm eternal, why all the external posture and pretense? My time would be better spent overcoming rebirth and rising high into the spiritual sky. The human form is a unique opportunity to overcome the cycle of reincarnation, which no one survives. Time to realize your eternal state and attain the spiritual world one day. We have free will to make our own decisions, but we have to face the reactions to the way we've been living. Sense enjoyment is fleeting, shabby. We do it over and over, but it never makes us happy. Not knowing our true nature, we cater to all this temporary stuff, but it's never enough. Ignorance causes dissatisfaction of the soul. We can't imagine why we're not happy. Then we go old, get crabby, and go cold. It's hard to turn back once you've sold your soul. On the other hand, in 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Bhakti Pajanava Viraktana Jatatrisha Eku Karasha Prapadyamana Nashnu Tushti Pushti Surapayo Nishtautarha. Let's say you haven't had food for a long time. You're starving. So you come up to a banquet table full of good food. You take one bite and your hunger gets a little bit less. You take another bite and your hunger gets a little bit less. You take another bite, and every successive bite, you become more satisfied. You become more happy. You get your strength back, your vitality. You become a little less miserable with every single bite. So as we stumble upon, due to our great good fortune, a spiritual master who initiates us into the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and as we chant, and as we take vegetarian food which has been offered to the Lord, non-vegetarian food which has been not offered to the Lord, not only does it not nourish your soul, but it perpetuates conditioned life to the point where you yourself have to take many future births as a subhuman. We are the living graves of murdered beasts, slaughtered to satisfy appetites. We never pause to wonder at our feast. If animals like humans have rights. We pray on Sundays. We have light to guide our footsteps on the path we tread. We're sick of war. We don't want to fight, and yet we gorge ourselves on the dead. Hello, folks. The unoffered food, which is full of negative karma, which you obtain through violence and bloodletting, is poison. It's not nourishment. It's not nutrition. You can take all the nutrition classes. You can have a PhD in nutrition. But I'm telling you right now, in the strength of the scriptural information that I have available, that is not nourishment. That is poison. That is condemning you. Future lives in the subhuman species. Only when you take cruelty-free food, which is offered to the Lord, does the soul receive nourishment. Only when you vibrate the tongue to describe the name, fame, glories, and pastimes of the Lord does the soul get nourishment. Only when the tongue is engaged in those two activities, eating prasadam and vibrating the holy names of the Lord, at that time, and at that time only, after who knows how long of being starved and deprived of nourishment, at that point, the soul begins to revive. The soul which has been weakened, which has been neglected, which has been banished, which has been overlooked, which has been exiled, which has been pushed down. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and take prasadam, it's like you're getting food and actual sustenance for the first time in thousands of lifetimes, thousands of incarnations. And that's why it's recommended. Like, if you have a disease, You have to stop taking the things that cause the disease, and you have to start taking nourishing food and your medicine. So similarly, we have this disease. We've identified with this material body. We have been without nourishment for the soul for who knows how long. And if we want to come back to a wholesome, healthy state of self-awareness and ultimately go home back to Godhead, then we have to follow the path that any diseased person follows. We have to take the medicine, Enechu Shodi Maya, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we have to avoid those things which caused our disease in the first place, which means unoffered food, especially flesh food, which is obtained with an extraordinary amount of violence. Chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam, and you will eventually go back home, back to Godhead. Now, within this material world, there are various items of bhakti. There are 64 limbs of devotional service. There are 64 areas of activity performing which one can qualify oneself in this life to go back home, back to Godhead. So there are so many references to, in this world, if you're still in a conditioned material body, but you want to place yourself, you want to ideally situate yourself, so at the time of leaving this body, you go back home, back to Godhead. One of the best things you can do is go to holy dhams like Vrindavan and Mayapur. Associate with the saintly persons there, visit the temples, do some service. This is called Vrindavan Mahamrita, that when you go to Vrindavan, you basically become immortal. When you go to Mayapur and you delve, you submerge yourself into the culture there, the practices there, you make friendships and lifelong associations, you are basically free from death at that point. Nowhere does the scripture say Salt Lake City, Mahamrita, New York, Mahamrita, Bombay, Mahamrita, Delhi, Mahamrita. No, all the recommendations are Mayapur Mahamrita, Udupi Mahamrita, Tirupati Mahamrita, Vrindavan Mahamrita, because in the Dham, where the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and the offering of vegetarian food is commonplace, there's a spiritual frequency which resonates with the soul. One cannot help but feel that my Krishna consciousness, my original self as an eternal servant of Krishna, is now getting nourished, getting strength, coming into its own. There is a revival of my original Krishna conscious. And when we go to the places of pilgrimage within this material world and make them our home, it's a prelude for going back home, back to God. Therefore, it's highly recommended. And if you can't, or if you'd rather preach, like myself and my wife, then you create Vrindavan, you create Mayapur where you are. If the holy places are characterized by chanting and offering of prasadam in Kansas City, in Idaho Falls, in Des Moines, in Sioux City, if you have a place where there's worship going on, where there's food being offered, and people are coming on a regular basis to chant and discuss Krishna consciousness, that is the holy Dham. That is the same as our eternal home in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Who and what do we have here? We'll start with Brent. Brent jumped on right away. Carmen was with us right from the very get-go as well. Vaibhavi came in, ground floor. Natasha, thank you. Hare Krishna. Carmen has here some verse. A devotee doesn't need to retort when worship and temple are short. The friction of retribution is but fiction and illusion. What lacks in life is abstract. In fact, Maya's treats are always incomplete, bittersweet feats. What a wordsmith you are. A devotee doesn't need to retort when worship and temple are short. The friction of retribution is but fiction and illusion. What lacks in life is abstract. In fact, Maya's treats are always incomplete, bittersweet feats. Wow. That's high language. You have a gift there. Bina Haribo from Calgary. I was just going over the Bhagavad Gita song. Imagine how it was that you know what we have to do next year is the Madhurastakam. Can you practice that? I will sing the Madhurastakam to a soundtrack and you will dance. At the Calgary Festival of Colors in June, Bina, who's a Bharatanatyam dancer, accompanied me, and we did a version of Bhagavad Gita where I rapped with music and she danced, and people really liked it. They were mesmerized by it. So let's do that again in 2024, but also do the Madhurastakam, the 8 prayers on the sweetness of Krishna. I'm practicing, so you can practice too. She already said, sure. She says, my pleasure. She's up for anything. She's ready to perform at the drop of a hat. In fact, if you go to her Facebook page, she's practically always performing. She's out in beautiful Canadian backcountry dancing on the trails. Here's Brent. Brent's very good. Sagebrush may be plush for a lama, but it's just material karma. Get in a spiritual mood by eating offered food. Sagebrush may be plush for a lama, but it's just material karma. Get in a spiritual mood by eating offered food. That's funny. All right. Thank you all for joining us here on Transcendental Tuesday. We've had a pretty good session. Yesterday was really good. I felt awfully pumped up after yesterday's realizations. And today I think was a good follow-up. We'll have more tomorrow on Wisdom Wednesday. Rob, everyone's eager to know what your additions to our efforts at poetry are going to be today. It's all yours.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Well, with these other wordsmiths, they seem to have a bit more skill with the longer ones than I do. So I'll leave those up to them. So I just stuck with my little short ones. I like those.
Prabhupada, he said, brevity is eloquence.
I don't know if these are eloquent, but we still do our best. Nowhere are we in our element. We're not meant for the material environment.
True enough.
In a place we won't stay long, we try too hard to belong.
That's good.
Focus on getting out, not on getting clout. Even sane and sober, you can get run over.
That's paraphrasing Bali Maharaj.
Don't nourish the body, but neglect the soul. Feed them both and loose Maya's hold.
Nice.
Serve in the holy Dham to break earth's serve in the holy Dham to break death's bond.
Nice.
Haribo.
Yeah, we're going over Christmas weekend to a place in Texas. I've been invited to a Bhagavad Gita retreat from the 22nd to the 26th. It's called New Navadvip Dham. If anybody's interested, you can look up their Facebook page and their website. The retreat is advertised. I'll be there with Prahlad from Australia, Radhika Raman, who's also from Utah, and one of the Swamis, forget his name. I can't remember his name. It's a 7,500 acre property. And it's intended to be a place where devotees can congregate. It's intended to be a holy dham. They've got a master plan there. You can see it on the website. They've got a very, very ambitious master plan for a whole Krishna conscious city. So it'd be nice because right now our big communities are in West Virginia and Florida. There's nothing west of the Mississippi. Los Angeles has quite a few devotees, but it's not really like a rural community. So it'd be nice to have something closer, a bigger community. But my mood is, to be honest with you, I'd rather be on the cutting edge. I'd rather be in the trenches, introducing Krishna consciousness to new people, rather than being couched in a community where pretty much everybody's a devotee and there's very little preaching to do, or the preaching that to be done is like really high, like when I was in Los Angeles, there were a lot of Sanskrit scholars there. And so you couldn't just speak you couldn't give the Bhagavatam class on a basic level. You always had to introduce something. You always felt the pressure to, refer to Baladev Vijayasad, Vishnu Chakravarti, or offer something juicy, something new, which shouldn't have to be the case. But, I'm just more comfortable with the novices. I'm more comfortable introducing people to Krishna consciousness for the first time. So this is my dham. This is the way Krishna wired me. This is where I feel most at home. And it's nice to go visit communities in Los Angeles and Florida, although I've never been there. And it'll be nice to have a big community in Texas. I'm excited about going there and seeing it before any of the development has taken place. In fact, if you want to go there, there's no fees apparently for the festival. That means prasadam is free, activities are free. There's going to be a Harinam on South San Padre Island. There's going to be trip to the beach. And of course, the property itself will be toured, 7,500 acres. All you have to do is get there. You have to pay your travel and then hook up with them. They'll alert you to motel rooms, which are there in Edinburgh at a discounted rate. So travel and motel, food and activities are taken care of. It's the weekend of 22nd to 25th of December. It's near Edinburgh, Texas, and you can find it online, New Navadvip Dham. Anyway, I think we've said enough. It's almost 8:30. We've been with each other for the better part of an hour. Thank you so much. I realize that there are a lot of options, and I'm so humbled and appreciated and honored that you choose to be with me for one whole hour this Transcendental Tuesday. And for those that should like to rejoin me, I'll be back tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.